Hey everyone, and welcome to the live stream of the Ask Me Anything session with Hello Savanna. And let me tell you, okay, we do this a lot, which is like, hey everyone, but just to give you a bit of introduction, Hello Savanna is a super solid project coming all the way to you from Mali. And just to give you a little bit of brief, they are a farm to folk solution that looks to revolutionize agriculture supply chain, I would say. And now that they're trying to apply blockchain, it's interesting how they want to tokenize the model, but more so their intentions at the heart of it is to give a region that is facing high levels of food insecurity access to nutritious food, but also be able to allow people to know where their food comes from and allow people who produce these food to have a platform to be able to share, how they did what they did. So before we start off, this is me, Trish, from the Cardashift team. I am the impact assessment lead. And along with me, I have Florentine, who is a little bit of a product ninja, and she's going to introduce herself briefly. And then I will let the team of Hello Savannah do a round of introductions in any choice that they prefer. So, Florentine, you want to go
Yep.
first?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Florentine. I'm a product manager at Matters and Cardashift, and I'm really happy to be here with Hello Savanna.
Thank you, Florentine. So, team of Hello Savannah, I don't know which order you want to do this alphabetically, or how does this? Oh, wait, just go. Come on.
Hi, everybody. My name is Oumar Barou Dylan. I'm the CEO and founder of Hello Savanna. I'm currently in Kelowna, British Columbia, in Canada, but our project is based out of Mali. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Thanks, Omar.
Kevin, you want to go next?
Yeah, hello. My name's Kevin Wilson. I work with Oumar Barou, and I'm based out of British Columbia, but working for the last 7 years with Omar and other projects in Mali. And my focus is on technology as the Chief Technology Officer for Savannah.
Thanks, Kevin. Nice to meet you. Dylan, yeah, you can raise your hand up again. Go for it.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Dylan, nice to meet you, COO for Savannah. I've been working with these gentlemen for a number of years now, so we have a lot of experience working together, but also in areas similar to Hello Savannah. So excited to take any questions and share a little bit more about our project.
Yeah, and thank you. Just to let you know, audience, you can already start putting like comments or kind of questions like onto the chat as well. We'll probably address these questions in the next 20 minutes, but the first like 20 minutes we have a little, I would say, like project background kind of session. So here's an opportunity that where we post questions to the founding team, as well as very crucial like members of the team that are going to build this forward. They're just going to answer very basic questions, but also tell you more of their project. So let me start with the first question, and then Florentine will present the next one. So the first question here is, can you pitch your project to us? And more importantly, what's the story behind your project? How did this start? And kind of what's your vision? Like these are three questions I think we want you to encapsulate in that kind of like pitch.
Baru, I think you might be on mute.
Yeah, he is on mute, but he's busy like talking to himself, so it's fine.
Apologies. I just put on mute. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so Hello Savannah, we are a transparent and equitable food system connecting local small food producers to consumers. And the project really, the goal here is really to focus on small scale farmers and get them to feed local consumers and reducing the carbon footprint, but also really encouraging homegrown food for local consumers. And the idea really came about 2.5 years ago, when the world was going through everything that we face right now. And we kind of understood what the continent, especially Mali, would face in the future. So now, understanding the realities of agriculture over the past 9 years, dealing with smallholder farmers, we wanted to address these issues and really try to mitigate the risk and also really focus on these smallholder farmers because at the end of the day, the food supply chain in Africa, in most countries in Africa right now, is disconnected. There's no really direct link between the small scale farmers and the consumers. The middle is where all the chaos happens, and our goal is really to solve that issue and directly link the smallholder farmer to consumers so people know exactly where the food comes from.
Thank you. And I think before we, move on to the next question is Florentine obviously will pose the question on impact. The only one thing I'd like to point out is Kevin, if before you highlight the impact that your project would kind of address, or kind of create, it'll be nice if you could just kind of put in front of the audience the problem that really exists today on the African continent, right? So more so the problem statement as to not just say why you exist, but why are these the specific impact areas? So before you address that, kind of give like what the scenario is today and what it would look like once you start working on it. Florentine, can you probably pose this question in terms of what you want answered on the impact side?
I had a question about the team. I mean,
Okay, cool. So we'll get to that as soon as we're done with this. And then Dylan, I mean, Florentine's the one who's going to be questioning you. But Kevin, yeah, the floor is all yours. And then if you can help the audience understand, why you exist from the impact angle.
Sure. As Oumar Barou shared with us today, is that we really are focusing on smallholder farmers feeding the continent. The actual problems that we have today is that there's a complete disconnect between smallholder farmers and consumers, whether that's direct consumers or business to business or business or even into grocery services. And the issue there is that there's lack of transparency. There's 40% post-harvest loss. There's nobody understands where their food comes from. Currently in Mali, for example, over 55,000 metric tons of fresh vegetables are imported into Mali from 3 European countries every year when that food can be grown. So what we have is a disconnect even in the financing and the support of smallholder farmers to feed food. It seems that the intermediaries in the middle, it's easier just to import food from outside rather than support the local growing. So that's the problem, is that we have a chaotic, disconnected, disjointed supply chain with no traceability, no support of smallholder farmers, and no path right now in the current system of how do we bring order out of the complexity of handling tens of thousands of smallholder farmers. So knowing that that's the problem, this is we at Savanna, Hello Savanna, are offering a solution to be able to resolve those problems.
Cool. And I think what's interesting at this point is it's actually a question that's posed from the audience, which I'm happy to show on screen, is because we mentioned smallholder farmers a bit in the last 5 minutes. The number one question of the audience is like, how do you define a smallholder farmer? And, do you apply a particular definition, or it can be something that you have within your framework, doesn't have
Yeah,
to be.
with it,
Yeah.
that's a very good question. And for the sake of our business models and for the sake of articulating what is a smallholder farmer, there's different terms. You can say a small scale farmer, a smallholder farmer. That is a farmer that's farming less than 2.5 hectares of land. And that's another way of defining it is a smallholder farmer versus a big ag farmer, a monocrop farmer. Because our model is to work with smallholder farmers who are growing multiple biodiverse crops. And that is just part and parcel of a smallholder farmer, is that they grow sometimes 10, 15, 20 different crops on their smallholder land. And a smallholder farmer does not have to be a farmer that owns their own land. It could be a farmer working someone else's land, but they accrue the benefits of their smallholder farm. So when we think about smallholder farming, we're thinking about agrobiodiversity. We're thinking about empowering people who have control over a piece of land that they're quite aware of, and versus big ag monocrop farmers. We've also defined smallholder farmers as farmers in our model who will begin a transition away from large chemical inputs, pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, start transitioning towards a more agroforestry model or a more regenerative farming model. But that is a journey that a smallholder farmer can take, and they can take if they're supported to do so.
Yeah. And I think just to highlight Kevin's point, like if you look at the chat, I am just posting what is actually the WFP's version of it, which is not too far from yours, but they clearly mention that there is no unambiguous global definition. And kind of the metrics that you decide to kind of label a smallholder farmer is either mostly based on size, but you also have the other elements that Kevin was pointing out. So this is just to provide more resources to our audience in terms of like, the definition can vary. But thank you, Kevin. And I think Florentine also has a question for you.
I have a question about the farmer journey. How have you planned to get in touch with the farmer? How can they use your solution? Could you explain us step by steps how it's working for them?
Yes, very good. It's like we sat down with family and stakeholders in Mali over the last few years, drawing upon our last 9 years of working in Mali, and the guidance that we got from the ground and from the farmers was that work initially with farmers on our own land. So initially, we have land that we have control of, and we will be sharecropping with local farmers until we develop this model. So initially, farmers are coming from villages which we have generational relationships with, and our initial project in Berala is 15 kilometers away from our headquarters in Tabacoro, and really it's any farmers who want to work with us. In our case, for the last 9 years, we've been focusing on uplifting the lives of women smallholder farmers. And for I would say the first year or two, there will be a focus primarily on uplifting women smallholder farmers, because if one looks back into the history of agriculture before the onset of the Green Revolution and large mono ag, farming has always been the domain of mainly women farmers, women smallholder farmers. When big ag came along, that power transfer occurred over to large male-run large ag farms. So we will be drawing upon the natural farming resources of neighboring villages to work on their own little 2.5 hectare farms.
And just as a follow-up question, we got this from the audience, which is by Spartan 3733. It's just like, why Mali specifically? And I know this story, but like the audience doesn't. So somebody take this question.
I think
like,
Oumar
whoever.
can take that question.
Yeah, I was also eyeing him, but like I think this is important for the audience to know, why Mali? Because the question that follows is like, can we really say Africa and like things like that? So go for it,
Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason Mali, I was born in Mali. Um, my parents are currently in Mali. I came to Canada about 22 years ago, for school, and decided to stay here. My family's here, but everything that we do is based out of Mali, and understanding our relationships in Mali, like Kevin was just talking about. Over the past 9 years, we've been working with smallholder farmers in Mali um, to help them sell their products on the global market. So we started with like 15 smallholder farmers, 15 women, And now we're close to working with 1,000 smallholder farmers, women smallholder farmers. So this is not a journey that just started yesterday. We've been on this for a long time. And why another reason why Mali, my mother, who's a retired midwife, she's a renowned I mean, she's being awarded the knighthood in agriculture in Mali, right? Um, by the president of Mali several years ago. And my father, who also, who worked in social company with the UN as an hydrologist, the both are retired in Mali right now, and the focus is really to work with the women in these small communities and bring awareness into the hard work they do on a daily basis. But also, on top of all that, Mali has the second or the third lowest median age in the world, right? So that's what most people don't look at when it comes. I mean, most places in the world, when it comes, especially when it comes to Europe, Europe has a very old, median versus compared to Mali. And our focus should be really on the new generation, on the younger generation. So the reason we understand, there are a lot of there are a lot of noises right now when it comes to many countries in Africa, especially Mali. But I feel like most people are not looking at the opportunities versus the challenges right now. So Mali, there are many reasons why we focus on Mali. But Mali, because that's what runs through me. That's where I'm from, and I want to go back really to work with the smallholder farmers, especially with the women, to help them provide the tools to educate the next generation.
That's great. And I know this is coming from a very like personal background as well, which just kind of like you have your heart on the ground as well, in not just like yourself and the project team. So, and I think that was an important story to get out, because I've always felt like you're doing this for the reasons that truly connect with you and to your team as well. I'll
Absolutely.
let Florentine take the floor. She has a question for you guys as
We
well.
have we have a question in the chat regarding the market sizing numbers. Do you have any numbers about your market to understand how big is the challenge? It's the last question, Trish.
Sure, I can take that. Um, um, the capital of Bamako, Mali, is 3.2 million people. The population of West Africa is 420 million people, and the population of Africa is 1.2 billion people. Um, yes, as one of the listeners have said, of course there are differences because of different geographies, whether you're in East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa. But one common thread that flows through all of the countries in Africa is the focus on smallholder farmers. So there may be slightly different crops, whether you're in the Sahel, such as we are in Mali, or slightly different crops in Southern Africa or East Africa. Excuse me. But there still is this thread of bringing order and efficiency out of fragmentation and chaos in the supply systems. So there's a huge market, because one of the major facts is that Africa is a large importer of food, and really they're only an importer of food because there hasn't been sufficient resources or focus put on uplifting local value chains, where, as we're talking about, smaller farmers being able to feed local populations. So the market is huge, and we just want to take off, one bite at a time. And in our view is that we're not the silver bullet for all of the problems of food security and food sovereignty in Africa, but we believe we are offering a very viable de-risked solution that can enter this market. And we've gone further as to differentiate that market. The initial market is B2B, be able to provide vegetables into local markets, into local mass markets, and then gradually be able to provide food directly to consumers using using digital technology, which is available, ubiquitously all around the globe.
Yeah. And kind of like picking off of that, now that we've addressed like the problem statement a little bit. Um, and we'll get to the team question, but I think towards a little bit in the middle of the session. But right now, I think the main question is, what does your platform really look like? Is it, just a website? Is it a web app, an application? Just for the audience to understand, like, because you've scoped out the problem so well, going forward, how are you kind of providing the solution in the hands of not just farmers, but also the consumers? So anybody from the team can take this question, but I truly appreciate in like for the answer to be like what it is. Two is how are you really trying to simplify the process of like farm to fork? And the third point of this is also, what's the kind of scaling potential? Because sometimes it varies with the kind of platforms you use. So maybe just highlighting, because we also have a question that says, what have you learned from early versions of your products and services? So maybe what would be the third part is to really touch upon the roadmap. So where you are and what kind of versions do you want to iterate upon? So those are kind of the three main like sub questions, I would say. But you can
Okay.
split the question with your team, happily
Absolutely.
giving you the opportunity to do so. But yeah.
Yeah. So you can start. I'll follow up after you in terms.
Okay, great, thanks. As Oumar Barou mentioned, we're building upon about 9-10 years experience working with smallholder farmers, and during that time, we implemented a traceability blockchain solution. So we're aware of the benefits of having a distributed traceability program, so that people understand basically where their food came from, and when it was delivered to a store in Canada, they knew that it came from that particular farmer on that particular day. More specifically to Hello Savanna, we will be using an Android mobile phone platform for both at the farming end and at the consumer end. So at the farming end, the ability for a farmer to say, I have these products ready for pickup, and click it in. Then we've taken the decision that to adopt the principle of distributed. So we'll be using technology platform is also integrating transportation as a service. I think a lot of our listeners out there understand the model of Uber or Lyft model when it comes to pickup and delivery. We're working with a development company in Europe to help us put together a pickup and delivery technology solution. We also understand that in Africa, a lot of people don't have a fixed address like we have in Europe or North America with a postal code. And so we're also working with a technology provider to give a very unique physical address, right down to square 3 centimeters, that says that this is your unique physical address in space and time, so that when services are rendered, to be able to pick up or deliver from a particular address, that will be there. We're also implementing e-commerce. So we've had discussions with a number of e-commerce platforms about no different than what we see in Europe or North America with regards to e-commerce, is that you can order a product online. The difference here will be that you will know exactly where that product came from, that you'll be able to be able to trace the provenance, the journey, the claims, and the story behind that product. Because our intent here is that we want consumers to know that there is a individual smallholder farmer somewhere in Africa who has fed them that particular vegetable. And we want a smallholder farmer to know that there are particular consumers who have consumed your produce. Now, of course, how much information is shared, that's a privacy issue that it has to be determined between consumers and smallholder farmers, but the technology is there. So really what our technology platform is applying radical transparency on distributed resources, pickup and delivery using e-commerce.
Just to follow up on that. So two quick questions, right, before we move on. Why Android? What's kind of data you have to say, like, hey, obviously not iOS, just to highlight, because I also think, Android usage, and we have another project within the Launchpad as well that is opting for an Android application as well. So just to generally highlight what guided you to that, because sometimes you also have the option of let's just launch it on both, and like it'll be fine, like it's available on both, right? It's just an app store. So why Android? And two is I know how the model works. Like spending my last week in the US as well. A lot of it is once you place an order, it automatically depends on which delivery partner is able to carry out a particular order as well. Like who comes and is able to pick it up faster, right? So my question to you would be, considering this is like a farm to fork, how would you kind of be like, no, the authenticity of the product and from where it's going end to end is preserved? Just to highlight it to the audience very clearly, saying that no, just because we chose distribution partners doesn't break the chain of authenticity. So that's something, if you could just highlight more in depth. So but these are my two questions as a follow-up.
I'm happy to answer
Absolutely.
the app
Okay,
part
go
if you
ahead,
like, Kevin.
please.
I'll
Please.
speak to the app part. So I think that question is fairly easy. If you look at penetration rates for iOS, Android, and Africa particularly, it's overwhelmingly Android based, more than 80%, I think, compared to iOS, and that comes with that relates to Apple devices being more expensive, carrier agreements that need to be signed, et cetera, et cetera. So Android is the platform to operate in Africa. And yeah, just to speak to the first question with regards to what the product will be, like Kevin alluded to, initially it'll be a business-to-business ordering app that someone will be able to come on, order what they need as far as produce to be able to sell at the market. And then as we iterate, it'll eventually become a consumer direct app where someone can order and have produce delivered to them within 24 hours. At a specific address using our universal addressing partners.
That's absolutely, and just to add on to Dylan and the data point that he mentioned, I'm sharing a recent stats, by Statistica on the share of mobile operating systems, like between 2018 to 2021, and this is just to resonate and also kind of inform the audience on it. It's something that we take for granted, that we always think it's iOS kind of penetration, right? But if you look at Android, especially even in South Asia, you see the same kind of statistics that happen to be in Africa as well. Affordability being one of them, and also because of a lot more apps that are driven towards inclusion and everything that's made more available on certain platforms as opposed to other operating platforms. But it's super nice to also be able to debate on these topics, because I think you're touching upon another thing, which is inclusion, right? It's also delivery partners. The whole concept is new. And when you say it's business to business, you're also trying to be more inclusive of getting these ecosystem like actors to also support the kind of project you're doing. Is, guys, we can make this a lot more sustainable. We can also have your help in doing so. So absolutely love that aspect, and the way that you explained it, Dylan. It's just that it's a lot more clearer, I would say, for the audience. Florentine, I'll let you pose the next question.
Yep. I have a question regarding your business model. How have you planned to make money? Are the farmers paying to use your platform and your visibility?
Well, there's revenue is purely in sales of product,
Yep.
and farmers will not have to pay to use our platform. Since we are hiring the farmers initially on the farm, is that we have to provide a value proposition to smallholder farmers in order to incentivize or to attract them to our solution. I mean, we're in this as a social enterprise, so there has to be a value proposition to a farmer, and several of those value propositions is that free access to the platform, free access to crop, to agricultural specialists such as agriculturalists and crop breeders, access to the software, and consumers will not have to pay for that either. It's built into the price of the product. And from a business perspective, um, we've determined that when you optimize the supply chain in the middle, um, you can reduce post-harvest loss from 40% down to 8 or 10% as a minimum, and also provide radical transparency and traceability where that product comes from. Then you can provide that product, sell that product into the market for the same price that people are paying for non-traceable, questionable quality product right now. And so that's our business model, is really on the revenue end of it, selling it, and then optimizing the services to the smallholder farmers as to why they would want to use the platform in the first place.
And I think another question, just as a follow up, is there are other agricultural kind of products that do exist, right? So if you, one of the examples is like a Vodafone Farmers Club, which is basically the idea. Once you get a subscription to a particular kind of SIM card, you get access to weather data, you get access to market prices, and kind of understanding what the local market in terms of like product pricing or crop pricing looks like. Just want to understand from you if there are features, like that for farmers, or is this kind of application very driven just towards the consumers? Or is there a benefit to farmers kind of also accessing the platform and being like, hey, cool, this is kind of what the weather says, this is what the market pricing is for a particular crop? Just to understand like what kind of features this application would entail in.
Well, I can answer that. Is that it's like when we talk in the West about group purchasing plans or belonging to a co-op or a loyalty program. We're familiar with a lot of that terminology. In working with our family in Mali, we've determined that initial input has to has to be less disruptive to how they actually farm. So, as a matter of fact, part of our technology initially on the farm level will be SMS, which is people are very familiar with mobile money across Africa. But they also can access all kinds of information. So, one of the benefits of joining the Hello Savanna platform for a farmer is that all of this information that's available, weather information, crop information, daily information, will be available to anybody who's in the ecosystem. So it's, yes, our focus is on providing lots of information and curated information. We don't want to overwhelm farmers with this all kinds of information, but information that is very specific to how they're growing their particular crops or where they are, and and even information that says, timely information comes back to them and says that that crop that you sold to Savannah, into Savannah system here yesterday, 3 days later, it's been distributed to consumers. So that type of feedback, that constant feedback loop to consume costs to farmers, so that they know everything about their crop and everything about how to grow their crop.
Yeah, and also is just to ask you, because you have such a technological component to doing this as well. So I'm guessing they're almost real time updates of like, this crop is gone, now it's in the hands of the consumers, and being able to relay that information back like very much in real time. So I think that's a great aspect, right? We have certain models that have worked, like co-ops work for a reason, because there's like collective kind of investment, not just in being able to purchase resources, access credit, as well as platforms, but it's also a sense of community where you want to have this kind of yield together. So really like how you're mixing like different kinds of models, but also kind of applying technology to it. I think, moving on to the next question, I would say it's, if now that you said it from the farmer side, it's just for the audience to kind of understand, what is the consumer journey like. So now we said, farmers produce, they know exactly what's happening with the crops they produce, where it's reaching. If somebody can just kind of shed light on what the consumer journey looks like, we know their touch point is an Android app. After that, what happens?
Right.
Go ahead, Dylan or Omar.
Yeah. So with the consumer, it would be as simple as opening up your app. You see the list of all the produce available on the platform, and just place the order, and you get a confirmation saying exactly when you'll be receiving those produce at home, when they'll be delivered to you. And right now, the current realities on the market right now is that these consumers go to the local market to purchase their produce, the daily produce. And our ecosystem would coexist with the current ecosystem. We're not trying to compete with and also change the current reality, the current ecosystem. We want them to coexist because there's still a big appeal to people walking to the market, engaging, with people. This is part of the culture. But with the Hello Savanna app, you can actually have, hey, today I don't feel like going to the market. I just want to order my grocery to be delivered to me at home. Just to have this alternative is important because you can spend that day focusing on something else that's important, right? It's really to create efficiency. So very simple. You can go on your on the website or on your Android phone, place an order, and just within a click of a few buttons, you get a confirmation number when your produce will be delivered to you. We just want to
Yeah.
make it as simple as possible, the experience as simple as possible. But
Mm.
also for consumers, once you receive your product, to be able to give feedback to the farmers and also to Hello Savanna. And as a consumer, you will also have an opportunity to suggest different local crops that you are interested in for the farmers to grow, right? Because our main focus is really to create this open dialogue between the consumers
Yeah.
and the farmers.
And I think, it's really important, like just giving them also like feedback because it's a great sense of incentivization to farmers to know, we did a good job. The people who consume this food are appreciative. It's like are also recognizing the fact that, hey, this was such a great experience to get it straight from the farmer, right? So having that open dialogue is also very much what's happening today in ecosystems. And the trend that we see is we want to know where things come from, right? It's the same with clothes, it's the same with food. And it's the same with, oh, sneakers now are also changing. It's like, yeah, it's not mass manufactured somewhere, but it's like this person wove it. And now you're wearing that pair. So it's storytelling in its sense, just stepping aside from the whole like product part of it, but it's genuinely connecting to people, especially producer and consumer, on where things come from.
Absolutely.
And
And it's about
yeah,
creating that visibility. I think creating that visibility for the smallholder farmers, because right now the smallholder farmers are invisible,
yeah,
because people are not concerned with the practices, like, oh, what are the farming practices? Most people, but now I think we are becoming more aware and understanding, hey, this is what the farmers uses. These are the type of chemical they use. I don't want to feed my
yeah.
body this. So really, truly understanding the practices from the farmer standpoint is very, very important. Right.
I think that also puts you in a very like opportune, I would say, like time to market position as well, because you see more consumer awareness for products that they want to consume now. So the fact that you're creating an open dialogue really also contributes to generating value on that trend. And no, but it's great work, guys, because I did not know about this feature earlier that you are also going to, connect both these actors. I think just as a follow-up question is something that Florentine, I think, has been kind of
Uh,
because she's product oriented, so she's got all these questions that align there.
I've got a question about your business. Have you got any competitors today?
It's a tricky
Okay.
one. I know,
Uh,
like, because I mean, I know
I,
you guys are unique, but you got to answer this question anyway. But
yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like there are many actors when it comes to the farm to fork or working with smallholder farmers on the continent right now. And I would personally say one of the biggest so-called competitors would be Twiga. Um, and the Twiga's model is they work with smallholder farmers and deliver to vendors at the market. But this question is very interesting to me because for me personally, I don't think the space that we are in right now, there's so-called competition that's needed. Actually, we need allies more than competitors because right now, given what we are trying to offer as an organization, right? Creating the dialogue between consumers and farmers, creating opportunity for the growing population, having, radical transparency, providing the tools to the farmers to grow the produce efficiently. If another company were to come and do the exact same thing, that's no competition. That's actually creating equity on the continent. That's how we look at it. And our goal is to really to create true equity on the continent. Because right now, you can say there are 5 different or 10 different competitors, but this is a continent that suffers the most malnutrition and famine still. How do we justify that? Right? So the focus is really to really come together and solve these issues when it comes to shortening the food supply chain, but also creating opportunities for the smallholder farmers to feed these growing cities, right? So they are competition. Like this is just my personal take on competition. I don't truly believe in competition. I believe in collaboration, and actually having positive impact on the continent. So yeah, I mean, I can go on and just like then list different companies. There's like how do you call it? There's like a Yum Delivery. There's Twiga. There's One Order. There's like a few companies doing similar things, but I just feel like we get lost, by just putting our heads down, and just trying to figure out, hey, these people are doing this. I want to compete. I want to be the best. But the best at doing what? At the detriment of these smallholder farmers, right? The best should be, hey, what can we do to really create opportunity for these young people to stay within their cities and contribute to their economies, right? Because guess what? I mean, it's not to be political, but that's going to reduce mass migration, which is a big factor here of young people leaving these cities in Africa to seek opportunities elsewhere, right? So I think at a very basic level, at a human level, here competition is not needed. Collaboration is needed in order to create true equity on the continent.
okay, this is absolutely beautiful that you mentioned Twitter, because I was at the conference, the annual conference of the Society for International Development, and happened to meet Virginia Tech, which is a US aid kind of funded research that they did on Twiga Foods. And surprisingly, they mentioned exactly the sentiment that you voiced, which is, hey, when I'm looking to compete with people in this ecosystem, and I'm happy to put you through with the research team that did this, because they were like, you should get Hello Savannah to talk, because they're really focused on the sense that Tuga Foods was like, no, we want this to be applicable in more places, and we're so happy to have that sentiment of cooperation, because agriculture by nature, fundamentally at the core of it, is such a challenging pursuit, not just for smallholder farmers, even for corporations at a large scale. It is challenging because it requires multiple actors. You have multiple resources that need to be harnessed. You have government infrastructure that enables you to do this. But I'm so great that you guys mentioned Twitter, because that got my brain smirked, and I met the team that did the research on this. So happy to share that with you guys as well, because
Yeah.
That'll be
no, but
amazing.
it's beautiful that you mentioned that it's not a competition, because a lot of people working in this field are on the right thing, especially they work in Nairobi, Kenya, and
Yeah.
they're like, it's the same thing. The more you can reach across the kind of continent, the better it is to decrease the levels of food insecurity.
Absolutely.
Dylan,
Trish, quick question. We hadn't planned for this, but I'm just thinking I'd be happy to show some slides of our mobile app as well as our back end ordering, just to give people a sense of kind of what things could look like.
Cool. I mean, honestly, I think we have about 15 minutes on the clock.
Okay, I can just take a couple of minutes.
Sure, go for it. Let me give you the floor because we have, I think, 2 questions, but I'm sure you can absolutely answer that once we're done. Dylan,
Sounds good.
let me
Okay.
add you to the stream.
Perfect.
And go for it.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, just to give people, I figure sometimes the visuals really help. So for example, this is what our mobile app will look like. Someone will be able to come into it, view products, and just similar to any e-commerce ordering that we do nowadays, add products to your cart. Something that's a little bit unique about our app and platform, like we said before, is the universal addressing component of it. So instead of just putting in an address, because it may not be existent, you would be able to actually pin a location and add delivery instructions to your order, which is something that is really needed at the moment. With our transportation as a service system, we'll have an app as well for the driver that will allow people to pick up the order, similar to someone would be picking up a rider on Lyft or Uber, and complete that delivery, and of course submit pictures of the delivery and so on. We will have, because traceability is a big component to what we will be working on, we'll have of course a back office app that will allow us to view insights into how ordering is going and where product is coming from. And I think another question that came up was resources for farmers, and so we intend on having an app for a farmer or a farmer custodian that will allow them to be able to visualize a bit more about the processing that they're doing and the input that they're having into the system. So yeah, just wanted to show a little visual on what things are going to be looking like.
I think on farm management, so is there somebody that you see delivering a lot of the insights that you get as an educational session to farmers, or do you see, your team? I don't know, but like, what is, because I mean, data is obviously insightful. So, what's the delivery mechanism here? I would just ask.
Okay, just a minute.
I can talk to that.
Mm-hmm.
We've, through years of consultation with our family in Mali, in our previous work, we realized that we had to provide a service almost like what we call an advocate or a guardianship role, where I guess the closest equivalent to it would be a farm outreach worker that you hear, outreach workers. But we wanted to remove any power or any control from those outreach workers in the farm. We wanted to have people who are focused just on the relay of information, focused on ensuring that farmers understand their rights and their privileges, and the farmers have a free flow of information, and that job is theirs. So instead of just giving an Android phone to a farmer out, is that we realize that is not appropriate. It's better to ensure that all efforts are made to bridge that gap between information that's coming in to the farmer, and then let the farmer decide at what point they want to access that information themselves, or if they want to upgrade to an Android phone versus an SMS text phone. And but always with the function that the technology doesn't come first. It's the information and the empowerment of the uplifting of the farmer that comes first. And whatever means that we can do that, whether by having dedicated resources who are caring for the rights and the privileges of farmers, right through to a farmer who may be completely self-actuated with an Android phone and can just tap into that flood of information that's coming. Either way, it has to be based on how do we get the information to farmers the best way that they want to receive it.
Perfect. And I think, we have the last like 10 minutes left. So Florentine has a question for you, much more long term. And then Dylan, I think we can also answer that last question about team and what really, is the unique factor of Hello Savanna. and then kind of we can wrap this up. But
Sounds good.
we still have 10 minutes, but we just want to give you the time for the long-term vision, and two is the team. So split it among yourselves, but take the time, and then you can address this.
Maybe I can go first with the team, and so we can end with the vision. Does that work?
Yeah,
Okay,
cool. And I
sounds
think
good.
she has like the question to pose, because I
Okay,
don't
please.
know how long term she's talking. So let's just see.
My question about the team is why is your team relevant for carrying out this project? Like, why your team is the best team you can have to launch this project?
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's a super important question. Ideas are great. Everyone has them, but how you execute and who you choose to execute are what makes it happen. So like Kevin and Omar mentioned, although Hello Savanna is a new project to us, we are not new to this. So we have up to almost 10 years of experience, on the ground experience working with smallholder farmers. I think we mentioned in some of our posts in Discord, our previous project, Farafina, focused on working with smallholder farmers. We grew from a modest group of, like Omar said, around 20 to 950, and eventually were able to share the fruits of their hard labor with thousands of customers across North America and Europe. So we have direct experience on the ground, and we have a team of international project managers. We have a board that's made out of people with experience in climate and social justice. Like Omar mentioned, we have on the team in Mali, we have people that have received a knighthood in agriculture, ex-senior UN UNICEF staff. So we have a very robust team that has experience on the ground and with the immediate population that we plan on working with, which is extremely important because more often than not, and unfortunately in the continent, we often see people with great ideas and who mean well coming in and bringing what they think will work for the local community, whereas we are speaking directly to the people that we're going to be servicing, and we have a better idea of what the needs are. So yeah, that makes up the team.
Could you also just like very quickly answer like what's the size of your team currently?
Yeah, so it's the three of us that you see here, which I should say, if it hasn't been said before, although we are based in Western Canada, the plan is for us to move and be on the ground in West Africa and Mali. So it would be the three of us, and we have around 5 key team members in Mali that cover various areas from transportation to farmer engagement, and then people who work under them.
Cool. And Florentine, do you want to ask the last question? So I guess for the next question, it'll be cool if you can keep it, I would say, between 2 and 3 minutes, because after that, I'm going to make you, all three of you, do an exercise for 60 seconds each. And it's a trick one, but maybe answer this question first, and then we'll jump to the next one quickly. Florentine?
Yes, my last question is about your long-term vision. Where do you see Hello Savanna in 10 years?
10 years. Well, the long-term vision here is really collaboration. Our vision here is to work with like all the greatest thinkers on the continent to come together to solve these issues. These issues have been going on for decades, right? So the long-term vision here is none of these cities. I mean, right now our focus is Mali and also West Africa, but all these countries to stop importing food from outside, right? The 10-year vision would be these cities flourishing, right? You understand exactly where your food is coming from. Younger generation, now interested in farming not becoming, it becoming a true career, because as a businessman, you can become a farmer. As a young person, your family owns 2.5 hectare land. You can hire 20, 30 people to work on that land, right? So you're creating an ecosystem that's benefiting everybody locally, right? And then that would just lead to creating generational prosperity. So our goal here is for people um, to really understand the value of agriculture and also work, like Trish mentioned, with Twiga. Twiga is doing an incredible job in East Africa, right? But I feel like at this point right now, you can have 20 Twigas on the continent and not scratch the surface of these issues. So it's going to come down to all of us working together, for a brighter future. So we want to work with as many people as possible to address these issues. So that's what we see as our long-term vision.
Great. Okay, now we get to the fun part, which is all three of you can't copy each other. Okay, that's the other rule here. So, the question is, why should Cardashift community members vote for you? You each have a limited amount of time, but I also want you to add something that's personal as to, if I found you one to one, I don't know, in some alley or on the subway, what would you pitch and say, like, hey guys, we're competing on this like random, launchpad, which is not so random, sorry, but
Yeah.
it's a global launchpad, but be like, why you? So all three of you, let's go in, uh, I don't know, any order.
Who wants to go first?
It's confusing. There's no Omar first because Kevin says Omar, Dylan says Kevin. Like this goes in.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll go first.
Okay, so now we go backwards. Now we do
Yeah,
Dylan,
sounds good.
we
Yeah,
do Omar and Kevin, which is not the order we have tried.
we'll go from worst to best. So I'll start. So yeah, I think I feel really passionate about this because it's like when you see, for example, someone that has so much potential and they're not living up to it for one reason or another, and so the continent is, as we know, rich in resources, rich in people and culture. And I think it's, whether it's we play a small role in it or not, it's only a matter of time until it flourishes and is, the beacon of light that it will become. And so uh, I think our direct contribution is to be able with food and agriculture, like Omar was mentioning. I think restoring dignity to farming, allowing it to become a career and lead to generational wealth is really what we're passionate about. And the way we intend on doing this is through food, through mobile food ordering. So we are just really passionate about this in general, and I think. Hopefully people see that. I wouldn't want to take anything away from any of the other projects because they were amazing, and that's why they were selected. We are just here to be able to play a small role in the future of Africa, and so that's why I would ask for your vote.
That's great.
I think Chris is on mute.
Turn is Oumar.
Oh, my turn. Okay. This is for me. This does not feel like work. I just feel like this is kind of like a life goal of mine to create true dignity on the continent. It's personal. It's personal for me because I understand how I grew up before coming to Canada. I understand exactly what these smallholder farmers go through on a daily basis, and working with them over the past 9 years and selling the products on the global market has kind of given me this outlook to want to do more. And this is not by far, this is not a charity. You know, this is a scalable business. We've done it before. We've built a successful business, but now we're focusing on the continent. And over the past 9 years, what we were able to do with Farafina, I feel like we can think things to a different level here. So high return on investment, but high return on impact investment. That's what we are doing. And we just really encourage the community to come, ask us questions if they want to know more about the project. We feel very privileged to be part of this platform. So we thank Cardashift obviously for selecting our project, And yeah, we look forward to building this thing that could change agriculture on the continent.
Great. Let's go for Kevin.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's hard to add more than what Dylan and Omar have said. What really drives me is this focus on uplifting women smallholder farmers, and particularly African women smallholder farmers. I've spent 30 years of my career in Canada working with Indigenous First Nation Canadians, and I've come to realize as a non-Indigenous person that our future is really dependent upon us recognizing the primary contribution that Indigenous peoples around the world have in healing this planet and guiding us. And whether it's in Africa in neocolonialism or whether it's in a settlement colonialism here in North America, I think that it's non-Aboriginal people, non-Indigenous people like myself coming to the realization that we have to step back and we have to really give a first focus to the Indigenous people on this planet to really be uplifted and to remove all these barriers and all these hindrances that have been put in place. And when we do that, we will find that these smallholder communities, these women in these communities all over Africa, will not only uplift Africa, they will uplift the rest of the world. And I really believe that I want to be able to look at my grandchildren in the face, and I want them to see that I did my part, and my kids did their part in removing any barrier that will allow this planet to survive. And our planet will survive when we uplift people at the base of the pyramid, when we uplift particularly women farmers in Africa.
I mean, that's pretty powerful, in the sense that, putting that out there is we all just have causes that we align to, and things like working with farmers and especially smallholder farmers was my past life, and to know the kind of struggles they go through on a daily basis, and they're the reason we that keep our food system secure as well. And yet the kind of attention that's given to them and the kind of care that they require is not on the scale that we should be paying attention to or like giving them. I'm super happy that you were able to pitch your hearts here today because that's more important. And the fact that you're able to apply technology as well as tokenize these models is something that's great for Cardashift as well, because we truly believe in supporting projects like yours and also trying to see how the new ecosystem is able to raise funds that way. you know and thank you again. And thank you so much for your time and being here with us. And I think we can call this a wrap. So have a great rest of the day, evening, or afternoon, whichever part of the world that this international team is at. And thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you all
much,
very
guys. It's
much.
been a pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
All the best.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.